Hi everyone, hi, have a good evening. Hi, my name is Simon Ingrand. I'm a tabletop role-playing game enthusiast and I've been a game master for like 17 years. I also happen to have a YouTube channel where I talk about tabletop role-playing games and social justice issues. Last of all, I'm also an art graduate. I studied at, and I kid you not, the EESI school. It means the European Superior School of Image, but yeah, it's the EESI school. So I'd say I'm pretty qualified to answer the question, are tabletop role-playing games art? Google defines art as the expression or application of human creative skill and imagination, producing works to be appreciated primarily for their beauty or emotional power. So tabletop role-playing games do qualify for this definition of art. When they're played, they are an application of human imagination, and people are able to feel their characters' emotions by proxy. So we can say that tabletop role-playing games are appreciated for their emotional power. On top of this definition, I can tell you that art is an ever-expanding concept. In 1917, Marcel Duchamp's urinal was first exposed in a museum. It was the entrance of profane, mundane things into the world of art. Artists have, ever since that moment, pushed the definition of art to its maximum. Every new piece kind of has the aim to expand the question of the answer to the question, what is art? So you're gonna have more performance and stranger things. For example, Will Demvoy made Cloaca. This piece of art is a phenomenal work of engineering, biology, chemistry that turns food into feces.
What?
I said, this piece of art is a phenomenal work of engineering, biology, chemistry that turns food into feces.
Could you say that last part louder and slower?
It turns food into feces. It's a poop machine. Yes, this thing exists. I can explain everything. Guide made a poop machine, called it art, and sold it for a frightening amount of money. The art market is a money laundering scheme. White men artists sell for crazy prices by having their rich, white, illegal money friend buy it, and then the friend can resell it later to get clean money. With some tax payoffs, of course. Modern art in museums makes no sense on purpose so that you don't get too curious and find out about the money laundering. I'll tell you about it another time. If we followed the current definition that the art world uses for what is art and what isn't, technically anything can be art and anyone can be an artist. But tabletop role-playing games are a game. Doesn't that disqualify them from being art? This is pretty close to the debate of video games as art. There are a ton of examples of artsy video games that have been like mind-blowingly beautiful for the past few years. And a lot of passion goes into developing those games. And also a lot of art. Artwork goes into production of games, and so the end result incorporating that art is art, arguably. So video games match the precise definition we have of art. The emotional power that is described in the definition can be as simple as joy from killing in modern warfare. Yes, that means video games are art, even modern warfare.
I feel so much rage every time I play League of Legends.
So why do you play? Similarly, tabletop role-playing games have a ton of art that is put into them. You've got the illustrations, you've got the writing, the game theory, the acting. We can also see a lot of examples of tabletop role-playing games that include things like costuming and makeup, crafting props, figurine painting. Like, this is art. All of the passion that went into creating this duck figurine monstrosity made it art. This is art.
Oh my god.
I need you all to roll initiative against Quack Thulu.
I can also say that, calligraphy sometimes goes into tabletop role-playing games. I either did myself or had somebody else make like cool-looking letters that my players could get their hands on and read and look over for clues and things like this. the calligraphy just made it more realistic for them. Sometimes singing goes into the performances of tabletop role-playing games.
Come on, get your scanlan on. It's Thursday night and it won't be long. Gonna play my flute, play my shawm. It's Thursday night and it won't be long till I get your health up. Get your health up, I got all you need. No, I don't shoot bows, I don't swing swords, but damn, I can sing.
Sometimes even dancing. Back when I lived in France, I played in a D&D 4th edition game, and the game master, at some point we were at a ball and we had to look as normal as possible. And so when one of the NPCs asked me for a dance, the game master just like stood up and got me to like dance along. And it was like this really curious experience because it was awkward for me, but it was awkward for my character too. Because I wasn't expecting to have to do this, and neither was my character, but it helped. And I feel like that dance is part of the tabletop experience that I had that night. We also sometimes mix in culinary arts, like cooking. You know, not just when you go to a friend's house and they made something nice for D&D night, but there's other stuff. So, for example, when I did a Game of Thrones type game with like a lot of politics, at some point one of the NPCs invited all of the players for a meal, a public meal where there was going to be like some assassins, and there was going to be an assassination attempt. One of the player characters was going to be in danger of dying by poison. And so what I did is that I spent 2 days cooking this big meal for all of my friends. I went to a place that had this nice ancient-looking table and this candelabra, and I got 2 of my friends to play the NPCs. And I feel like the cooking that I did while thinking of like what the story was gonna be like, I feel like that was part of the experience. And when they were eating the food while, you know, they came in hungry, and they were eating the food while they were role-playing with my friends who had just like a little idea of what was going on, but who improv'd so majestically. Sometimes poetry ends up in tabletop role-playing games. Like, I know I use poetry all the time when I write prophecies, and I like including spoilers in my stories, so I do prophecies like a lot. You also have arguably designs for architecture in some of the illustrations and the maps. And if you wanted to say like, this is the like all of the arts that can be included in tabletop role-playing games, you could add filmmaking, because Critical Role has been making videos out of the process of playing the game. You could add photography, because some games use photography instead of illustrations. There's just so many art forms that can be added at like every single step of the game. But if all of the things that are art that are included in tabletop role-playing games are what add up to make role-playing games art, well, could you take art out of tabletop role-playing games and have it not be art? The answer is no. Even the most basic one-page games have storytelling and acting woven into them. And those are both performative arts that will go into the process of playing those games. John Wick himself, when he was writing his book, said, oh yeah, we have a John Wick as well. He's the one who wrote Dirty GMing. It's not a sexual thing. It's not as sexual as it sounds. It's just about being like... It's just about looking like an asshole game master to make your players feel like afraid. That's what Dirty GMing meant. So, in his book, John Wick talks about how theater breaks the fourth wall. The fourth wall, when you're at the play, is like the wall that should exist for the actors and the characters that separates the actors from the audience. When you break the fourth wall, when you address the crowd or you make a comment or a joke that only the crowd can understand, not the characters in the fiction, you're breaking the fourth wall. In that moment, the audience becomes part of the event. That is what happens as a consequence of the fourth wall being broken. John Wick says that tabletop role-playing games go even further because they break the fifth wall. The audience are the event in this case. It's more than just addressing the audience, he tells me. It's making the audience feel as if they're part of the event. What about the fifth wall, I ask him. What's that? I smile. Making them feel that they are the event. This is an argument that came before the popularity of Critical Role, where the players are professional actors, and so arguably the audience isn't them, but the millions of people who are watching. But even then, the process of acting involves, being the audience to the other person that you're acting against. So even those actors are the audience to their own work of art. John Wick proposes the idea that tabletop role-playing games blur the line between artist, art, and audience. When I play, I'm the storyteller, but I'm also the audience of my players. And together we are the performance, we are the art piece. And so because it combines all of those things together and puts the player in a state where their imagination is being called upon, tabletop role-playing games are the most immersive art form that I have ever encountered. And I've encountered, quite a few because I was in art school. This subject can be extended to one more distinction, the difference between high art and crafts. Historically, the line has been clear to determine what is a craft and what is high art. That line is the number of white men who are involved with the activity. If there's a lot, it's high art. To perform crafting is to gender female. The exceptions to this gendering that a man who practices woodcraft or who hones his writing craft is a manly man of the Ron Swanson or Ernest Hemingway variety, respectively, tend to only reinforce rather than subvert the general sense that in US culture, crafting is a thing lonely single ladies or lonely bored housewives or lonely empty-nested moms do. And it certainly isn't art. Crafts are moderately useful at best and useless, frivolous junk at worst. Although some deny its continued existence, there remains a hierarchy in the art world. Craft processes rank lower than disciplines such as video or sculpture. This extends even further. Among crafts, textiles are one of the least well regarded. This highlights issues of gender and value. Textiles are feminine, often made by women, and part of the domestic sphere. Prejudice against the feminine continues to be pervasive and used to diminish these works of art. The debasement of craft is yet another method of the continued marginalization of women in the art world. Cooking is a chore at home which was traditionally associated with women, but kitchen chefs practice the culinary arts. The artificial divide that exists between fine art and textiles, or applied and decorative arts or crafts, is a gendered issue. Historically, textiles have been labeled women's work and dismissed as inferior to pursuits such as painting and sculpture. For example, sewing is associated with women, but a lot of the most famous fashion designers who do art are men. So, what ends up in museums is often decided by the white men in charge. And let me tell you, there are a lot of white men in the hobby of tabletop role-playing games. But things are progressing. There's new and more inclusive games that are coming out every year. Games with less illustrations of fat characters in villain roles and more in player character roles. Games that have rules for wheelchair use, for representation of disabled people. Games with casual representation of queer people and the concept of queerness. Is it clear that I'm in the queer community if I have my trans dice mug and my sorry dad, but I'm a fully automated luxury gay space communist. Games that don't use mental illness tropes and stereotypes for horror. Games that don't have fascist imagery associated with the good guys. Games without sexist illustrations. Games that don't associate dark-skinned races with the evil alignment. And games that don't rely on xenophobic literature as a source of material. The more we have games like these coming out, the more we'll have an image of a hobby that is more inclusive and more people will want to join. This will make the gaming community for tabletop role-playing games more diverse. When this happens, some disgruntled white men will argue that their hobby is being overtaken and will stop defending tabletop role-playing games as an art form. Of course it's not art because it's a mass-produced entertainment game. That's not high art. So yeah, tabletop role-playing games are art, which means I have been practicing art diligently ever since I left art school and not let my training and talents go to waste for years because capitalism gives very little time to practice. Go forth, do art, pick up a local game and break the fifth wall.
All right. That was awesome, Simon. Thank you so much. I want to check in and see if we have some questions here for you. Hold on just a sec.
Want to come up here?
Okay. I'm sorry, say again?
Sorry. Yeah, I can answer some questions. What do we have?
Okay. So first question is there a particular scenario or game event, I'm not really sure how to phrase this, that really resonated with you and has stuck with you through the years?
Yes, there are a few. I really like the Powered by the Apocalypse series. It's basically all games that copy the model of Apocalypse World, and it on the character sheets there's you highlight basically the traits that you want your character to have, and in one of the categories is gender, and so it lists what the presentation for the character is, like non-gender conforming or presenting as male and things like this. So it's built into the character sheets that there has to be inclusivity in this setting. So that's something that really resonates with me. And most of the adaptations of Apocalypse World do something very similar with gender. I have a lot of other favorite games that I gush about a lot on my channel. But I'd say those are the ones who resonate most.
Wonderful, thank you. So next question. What is your favorite dish from that game you cooked for?
I promised myself I'd do it again, and I never got around to it. I think it was something with mashed potatoes, cut boiled potatoes, sesame, and spinach, and it was this strange mix. I mean, everything kind of fit with the medieval universe, as much as possible, but yeah, I remember really liking potatoes and spinach.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. All right, we want to. I think this is kind of a confirmatory question. Are all tabletop role-playing games art? Are there some that are not?
I'd say yes, absolutely. All of them are. Like even down to the one-page tabletop role-playing games, they still have improvisation and interpretation of characters woven into them as part of the definition of what they are. So even like the most bare bones are still art. Yeah.
All right, cool. And this is my question, and if it's not something, if it's going to break some kind of tabletop role play, if it's going to break the code, then don't do it. But why don't you talk about the game like the Alien game?
Oh, just because I don't recall exactly why. Oh yeah, it's just like it was really hyped up, and then it wasn't very good at all. So people just don't like it. It's like how you avoid talking about D&D 4th edition. It got hyped up a lot, and then it was not that good. Hello.
Got it. Hey, pet. If someone were to want to play the most beautiful tabletop role-playing game, is there one that comes immediately to mind as a suggestion? If someone was looking for the height of beauty in the form.
There are a few that come to mind, but I'd say that it's not necessarily about the game itself, although game aspects can promote social justice. It's about who you're playing with. You have to make sure that you surround yourself with people who people that you enjoy being with, friends, and very importantly, set boundaries, like which subjects would be triggering for some people, so we avoid those subjects, and things like making sure none of the people who are playing with you are transphobic if you're trans and stuff like this. So really, it's more about the people than the game, because you can play. I'm sure somebody could play Cthulhu in a very Call of Cthulhu in a very social justice fashion, but yeah, so yeah, just it's more a focus on who you're playing with.
All right, excellent. So I think that's it for our questions, but thank you so much for coming and answering questions. And that video was super good. And you're right, watching people chug down a beverage is usually a part of the Nerd Night experience. So thank you for giving us that again after a long year without it.
Absolutely. Have a great
All
night.
right. Thank you, Simon. You too.